Sit back and listen to this extremely interesting story.
Ring. Jen was startled awake by her phone on the nightstand, and beside the bed. Glancing at the caller ID, she saw it was Stan. "Hello," she said sleepily. "Hey, sleepyhead, how are you this morning?" "Not awake, Stan," she said gruffly. "Sorry, didn't mean to wake you. Normally, you are up an hour ago." Jen glanced at the time and saw it was 9 a.m. She must have really been tired last night. "It's okay. I haven't been sleeping well since you left." "I know. I don't sleep well when I am away. What are your plans for today?" Realizing that Camilla had said she would be calling anytime, I told Camilla that I would go out with her today. She seems so lonely since Donald's father left. "I am glad you have made a friend. Have fun today and let me know when you're back. Maybe we can video chat." "I would like that," she told him, cringing inside as she realized what she might be doing today. "Have fun, Jen. Love you." "Love you too. Bye." As she got off the phone, she lay there looking at the ceiling, remembering everything that had happened over the last few weeks. Groaning, she got out of bed and took a shower. She had just finished when her phone rang again. Cyrillic letter, 4, 5, 6 Ts. Camilla, Jen thought. The phone rang 4 times before Jen could work up the courage to answer it. "Hello, Camilla," Jen said as she answered the phone. "Hello, have you forgotten how to address me?" "Sorry, mistress. This is better. Are you ready to go? We have a place to visit." "I just finished showering. I have to dry my hair and—" "Don't worry about it. Wear yoga pants and a tank top. You've got 5 minutes, and you had better not be late." "Yes, mistress," Jen said as she hung up the phone. Jen took black pants and a gray top. Leaving the bedroom, she looked in the mirror. Her hair was still wet. Grabbing her purse, Jen ran out the door. She paused at Camilla's door, gathering her courage before she knocked. She had to wait 2 minutes before Donald opened the door. His eyes roamed over her body, causing her to blush before he motioned her into the apartment. Donald was still in his pajamas, and Jen could see he was excited as he looked at her. He reached out and grabbed her, pulling her close. Jen winced at the pain, but she didn't try to stop him. "Leave her alone, Donald," Camilla called from her bedroom. Looking disappointed, he squeezed a little harder before letting her go. Without a backward glance, he returned to the couch and resumed the video game he had been playing. "You're late, but we'll have to deal with that later," Camilla said as she walked out of her bedroom. "Stay out of trouble, Donald. Kathy will be here in a few minutes to watch you until I get back. Try not to give her a hard time," she said, kissing him on his forehead. Camilla had noticed that Donald was acting much more mature after his date with Becky. Maybe she can help him grow up, and he won't need an adult around all the time, Camilla thought, shaking her head to get the images of her baby leaving the nest. "Not a problem for today. Let's go," she said, walking past Jen and out of the apartment. Jen had to run to catch up with Camilla as she shut the door. "Where are we going?" Jen asked. Camilla glanced at her as they walked out of the building. "Don't worry about," she grunted. Camilla unlocked her car and sat in the driver's seat, noticing Jen holding back. "Are we going to have a problem with what you're listening to today? You are already in trouble for being late. Don't make it worse by me having to keep yelling at you for not fucking listening." "Sorry, mistress," Jen said as she hurried into the car. They drove silently for about 10 minutes, taking a series of back streets and entering a more industrial part of town. Jen looked out the window, trying to track where they were going, but she gave up after a dozen road changes. Camilla broke the silence as they turned off onto another side street. "Today only has one rule. You can't say no. You will do it without complaining or hesitation, no matter what you are asked or told to do. Any questions?" Jen was terrified. She had no idea what Camilla was up to, and based on last night, she didn't know if she could just blindly follow directions. She soon realized that she had no real choice. "I can't do anything to jeopardize my job or my relationship with Stan, mistress." "Can't or won't?" "I can't, mistress," Jen replied, finding a little of her old self buried under all the guilt. Camilla thought about it for a minute. "Fine. I won't do anything that causes you to lose your job, and Stan will never know what you've been doing as long as you do as you're told." Jen thought about it and realized that Camilla could just send the photos she had and she would lose everything. She looked down and answered "Okay" softly. "I didn't hear you." "I said okay, mistress," Jen said, trying unsuccessfully to keep the snarkiness out of her answer. "What am I doing?" Jen thought in disbelief that she agreed. Camilla glared at Jen briefly while they sat at a traffic light. You know, giving the person who can royally fuck up your life attitude is like pissing off the person fixing your food. You might not like the results. Sorry, mistress. I know it's not a good excuse, but the last few weeks have been overwhelming. Jen hurriedly said, trying to keep her face looking apologetic. I will forgive it this time, but don't expect that to happen again. Thank you, mistress. A little later, they pulled into the parking lot of an abandoned nightclub. All the windows were blacked out with neon signs advertising beautiful girls and live shows. Jen looked at the almost empty parking lot and glanced at Camilla. We are a little early for the main crowd, but I have a couple of things to take care of, Camilla said, getting out of the car. She glanced back and noticed that Jen was just sitting there looking lost. Get out of the car, she shouted. Jen hurried out of the car and followed Camilla into the club. The bouncer at the inner door looked up and smiled as light from the open door flooded the entry. Didn't expect to see you here today, Cam. He noticed Jen standing behind her with her arms wrapped protectively around her stomach. Friend of yours, Jen, this is Mike, Camilla said as she walked over to him and hugged him. She stepped aside and added, she's my new toy. Come over here and hug him. Jen walked slowly over to Mike and hugged him. She was surprised when he gave her a warm hug but didn't try anything. It must have been on her face because Camilla started chuckling. Mike is like a big brother to all the girls here. He will ensure you are safe now that he knows you are mine. Turning back to Mike, she asked, Jesse in? Yeah, got here about an hour ago, in a shitty mood though, giving Camilla a warning look. Great, maybe I can help fix that, she said, looking at Jen. That would be nice. He can be a real ass sometimes. Nice to meet you, Jen, he said, opening the inner door for them to walk through. Nice to meet you too, Mike, Jen replied as she followed Camilla inside the club. The place was dead since it was still early, with only a couple of scantily clad women standing at the bar chatting with the bartender. They glanced over at Camilla and then went back to their conversation. Camilla led Jen to a door marked Employees Only, which opened into a door-lined hall. Most of the doors were closed, and the ones that were open contained makeup tables and racks of clothing. Dressing rooms, Camilla answered Jen's unasked question. At the end of the hall, Camilla stopped at one of the closed doors and knocked. Jen could hear someone moving around in the room before the door opened, and a sobbing nude 18-year-old black woman clutching her clothes to her chest pushed past them and ran into one of the open dressing rooms before slamming the door. What do you want, Camilla? Asked a skinny guy in his 30s who was sitting at a dirty table. Trying out some new talent, Jesse. She came here asking for a job, so I made her remove her clothes. She started crying halfway through taking off her clothes. She knew it was a nightclub. He said, shaking his head, don't change the subject. Why am I looking at your face so early in the morning? He looked behind her and noticed Jen standing there. Your friend, he asked, running his eyes over Jen. More like my new toy. Thought she might make me some money and was wondering if you might be interested in her talents. Back to Jen. Come in here so he can see you. Jen walked into the middle of the room, clutching her stomach. She felt sick that she was even here, and how Jesse looked at her made her skin crawl. Calm down, he won't bite you. Well, at least not really. Camilla laughed as she sat down on a chair by the door. What kind of talents are we talking about? She doesn't look like she strips, and based on her body language, she isn't happy about being here, he said as he walked around Jen. She's a wonderful, beautiful mother and will do anything she's told, won't she, Jen? Yes, mistress. Jen replied, looking down. Mistress, interesting. Why don't you remove your top so we can see what you have? Jen looked panicked and glanced at Camilla only to see her mouth tighten. Staring at the floor, she complied with his request. She tried covering them with her arms, but Camilla, clearing her throat, prompted her to put her arms at her side, clutching her shirt in her right hand. Good, good. Is she good-looking, or is she sensitive? He asked Camilla, ignoring Jen. Yes. He grabbed Jen and hurt her, causing her to moan. Satisfied, he let go and backed away. Take the rest of it off. Knowing she had no choice, Jen did as she was told. You're right, Camilla. She's fantastic. As he walked around her, show yourself again. Jen moved her legs to widen her stance, still looking at the floor, hoping this would be over soon. Jesse ran his hands over Jen. I think a scared MILF is just an act. He asked Camilla, not really an act. She just likes to be made to do things. Drop to your knees, honey, he told her, standing before her. Jen wanted to argue, but a look at Camilla told her she had better do what she was told, so she dropped to her knees, keeping her eyes on the floor. He grabbed Jen's head and forced her to look up from the floor. Let's see how well you have the right skills. You want to get the job, then you have 5 minutes to please me. With a glance at the clock on the wall, starting now, knowing that she wasn't going to get out of this and that if she didn't make it in time, Camilla would punish her, she set about the task. 4 minutes, not bad for a newbie. Jen heard Jesse say as he pulled away. Jen knelt down, catching her breath, and Jesse sat down on the table. She felt conflicted, proud that she was able to please him so quickly, and horrified that she felt this way about anyone but her husband. When can she start? Jesse asked, completely ignoring Jen. She has nothing going on today, Camilla told him. Donald had another date with Becky, so he was covered. She has nothing going on today, Camilla told him. Donald had another date with Becky, so he was covered. Amateur night, I like it, Jesse commented, looking down at the housewife kneeling before his desk. Any thought of her stage name? I'm partial to Kitty, Camilla said, imagining strange men calling out to Jen. Kitty, Jesse thought, looking at Jen. Seeing no objection from her, Kitty it is. Jen just looked at the floor as they spoke about her like she was a chair. Look through the wardrobe and see if there is a costume she can use. Have Doris fix her hair as well, we have too many brunettes. Bring her back when you get her fixed, Jesse said, walking around his desk and picking up some papers. Jen was terrified of changing her hair color. How would she explain it to Stan or Becky? She looked over at Camilla but found no support. Dejected, she dropped her head, fighting back tears. Clearly dismissed, Jen grabbed her clothes. No need to put them on, Camilla said, grabbing Jen's arm and dragging her out of the office. Camilla guided Jen down the hall to another closed door. Knocking, Camilla turned the handle and opened the door. Hey, Doris, Camilla said, addressing the old woman sitting on the couch. Doris looked at Camilla. Get out of here, Doris said before turning back to the TV show. Glad to see you too, Doris, Camilla said, ignoring the woman and pulling Jen into the room. Doris looked at the naked woman Camilla pushed in front of her, carefully observing her posture, expression, red lips, and signs of recent interaction. You okay, honey? Doris asked, ignoring Camilla completely. Having run the back of the house at this club for years, she had some experience with women who might not be doing this of their own free will. Jen looked up and started to answer when Camilla cleared her throat. A quick glance at her reminded Jen what would at stake if she said the wrong thing. Never better, Jen replied, briefly looking at Doris before returning her gaze to the floor. Doris wasn't convinced, but unless Jen told her what kind of hold Camilla had on her, there wasn't anything she could do about it. I take it that she is going to start stripping? Jen tensed at the comment but relaxed, unable to process what was happening. Doris noticed and filed it away for later. Yeah, Jesse wants her on tonight but doesn't like her hair color. We don't have enough redheads around her, Camilla said, imagining Jen as a redhead. Anything else? Asked Doris, who really didn't care what Camilla or Jesse wanted. He wants her costume to match her stage name, Camilla said with a smirk. Okay, what is her stage name? Kitty, Camilla said, laughing. Really? Doris looked at Jen. Jen just nodded, too embarrassed to answer. Okay, I'll take care of it. Now get out of here. Camilla smiled and looked at Jen. Remember, I can ruin your life, she whispered before walking out the door. After the door closed, Doris pointed to a chair next to a sink. Have a seat. Jen walked over and sat, lost in thought. She didn't know how much more abuse she could take. Doris grabbed a barber's cape and put it around her. Don't want to get any dye on your skin. It's a pain in the ass to get out and can take days. Any specific shade of red? Jen had never considered dyeing her hair, like the natural brown. What do you recommend? Jen asked, looking at Doris. Well, for your skin tone, I think spicy cherry red. We can keep some of the brown undertones if you like. Doris pulled up some pictures of models with that hair color, something like this, Doris said, pointing at a picture. The color looked natural on the woman. At least it's not a gaudy shade, Jen thought. Glad Camilla was gone and not part of the color selection. Jen hated to admit it, but the color might look good on her despite being something she would never do herself. "I guess that's okay," Jen commented. Doris looked at her for a few seconds before turning away to grab the chemicals. "The length is good. This will give you something to throw around. Men go for it," said Doris, trying to lighten the mood. An hour later, she was done. Handing her the mirror, Jen couldn't believe how different she looked. "Come over here and lay down," Doris said, patting a table. Jen left the chair and climbed onto the table. "You need to be put in order," said Doris. Left with no choice, Jen lay there while Doris did her work. Once finished, Doris led Jen to another room to pick out an outfit. "Kitty has to have cat ears," Doris said, pulling them out of a bin. "Okay, white buttoned belly shirt and hot pants." Doris looked at Jen. "You aren't one of those women who can't walk in high heels, are you?" "No, I've several pairs at home," Jen replied. "Great, one less thing to worry about," Doris said, walking to the rack where multiple pairs of shoes were hanging. At the shoe rack, Doris looked at Jen's feet and grabbed a pair of 3-inch black heels. "Get dressed," Doris commanded, watching a nervous Jen dressed in the outfit. "Okay, turn around. I think they will like you," Doris commented as she adjusted the outfit. "How did you know my sizes?" Jen questioned, impressed that the other woman had picked out clothing that fit perfectly. "Honey, I have been doing this longer than you have been alive. After a while, you just pick up a knack for sizes. Come on, let's see if Baby can teach you the basics." Baby was one of the women standing at the bar when Jen was brought in, a 20-something brunette with small breasts. "Jessie wants her on tonight, and you get the job of teaching her the basics," Doris told Baby. "Fucking great," Baby muttered, putting down her drink. "What are you, some kind of cat?" Baby asked, walking around Jen to look at the new meat. "I was told her name is going to be Kitty," Doris said. Jen flashed her a look and mouthed thank you. "What's the matter with her? Cat got her tongue?" Baby asked when Doris answered for Jen. The other women laughed. Jen blushed and looked at the floor, hoping it would swallow her. "Come here," Doris told the women standing there. The 4 women walked a short distance away and had a whispered conversation, leaving Jen alone to awkwardly stand while she waited for them to return. Jen overheard Camilla's name, which caused more muttering from the women listening to Doris. Eventually, the group broke up and returned to where Jen was standing, holding her arms around her stomach, trying not to get sick from her stress. "Come on, Kitty. I'll show you enough to get you through the series. Honestly, sometimes not being perfect at it pays off better than being professional. Some imagine that you are their wife, girlfriend, sister, or, unfortunately, mother, and tips are better." Baby led Jen away from the group toward the stage, which Jen was glad for. The young woman seemed both positive and helpful, while the other women were more guarded, almost looking sorry for her when they looked at Jen. That was harder to deal with than the teasing and mocking from earlier. Picking a table right next to the stage, Baby turned to Jen. "Have a seat." The 2 women sat there, waiting for the next show to start. "Want something to drink?" Jen shook her head no. "Are you sure?" "It might help." Jen thought about it and decided it might help settle her nerves. "I don't have any money with me," Jen admitted. Camilla had taken her ID and made her drop her purse off in the apartment before they left. "There is no cost for drinks as long as you're working." Jess thinks it helps loosen up the dancers. Jen thought about it for a minute before she answered. "Sure, I'll take a shot of bourbon. A girl after my own heart." Baby smiled, waving over a server. "Hey, Baby, what can I get you?" the server asked, checking out Jen, who looked completely out of place despite her outfit. "Hey, Sam, Sam, Kitty, Kitty, Sam." Baby motioned between the 2 women. "Hey, Kitty." "Like the outfit," Sam said, running her eyes up and down Jen. "Hello," Jen said, awkwardly waving at Sam. Ignoring Jen, Sam turned to Baby. "New girl?" "Yeah, Jessie hired her, and before you ask, Camilla has her hooks in." Sam glanced at Jen, surprise and sadness visible for a few seconds before her smile returned. It happened so fast that Jen wasn't sure she had seen it. "Well, welcome aboard," Sam said, sticking out her fist. "Thanks," Jen replied, bumping knuckles. 2 shots of bourbon. "It's not cheap either." Sam smiled and walked to the bar. Jen watched the young blonde walk away, wondering what she had on under her tight shorts. But what's wrong with me, thought Jen, turning away and looking at the baby. If baby noticed, she didn't say anything. Just so you know, none of us care who brought you here. Doris thinks something is going on between you and Camilla. This means that you are not doing it because you want to make extra money. I want to talk, I'm a good listener. Ah, thanks, Jen said, meaning it. Jen had already decided not to trust any of the women here until she got to know her better. The risk was too high. They would make things worse. Right then, the house lights dimmed a little, and a spotlight lit the curtain. At the end of the stage, the next performance is Cinnamon. She always captivates the boys with her performance. Since you are new to this, see how it works. A tall Asian woman dressed as a police officer burst through the curtains and strolled onto the stage. Approaching the edge of the stage, she began to dance. She closed her legs and stood, putting a hand on her cap and running her fingers on the bill, before tossing it to Jen with a wink. Jen caught it out of reflex, unsure what to do with it. Glancing at baby, she raised an eyebrow, put it on. She will stop by later to get it back, baby said, dancing in her seat to the music. Cinnamon continued to dance, teasing the handful of men in the audience. Jen watched Cinnamon dance in fascination. Cinnamon paced the stage, moving to the center and back. Glancing over her shoulder with a smile, she began to undress, teasing the men who threw money on the stage. Gradually, she slid the shorts down until they were halfway down. Crawling up to Jen, she danced in front of Jen's face. Baby laughed. She wants you to help her. Jen didn't want to get involved in the act, but remembered how Camilla had told her that she should do whatever was asked of her. Jen slowly followed Cinnamon's cue. Cinnamon danced again for the men, crouching in front of them and letting them put money into her clothes. Walking over to Jen again, she arched at the waist, facing away from the men, and placed her hands on Jen's shoulders. Leaning forward, Cinnamon put her mouth against Jen's ear. You look pretty good, Cinnamon said. Pulling back a little, she kissed Jen. Jen was surprised by the kiss and was hesitant at first. Forgetting everyone who was around watching them, Jen melted into the kiss, running her fingers through Cinnamon's hair as it heated up. Cinnamon broke the kiss and pulled away a little, looking into Jen's face. Jen couldn't hide her desire any longer. Her eyes were half closed and her face flushed. Baby leaned in, nuzzling Jen's neck, whispering, "Keep helping her." Jen followed the instructions, unhooking Cinnamon's clothes. "Good girl," said Baby, touching Jen. The dancer smiled at Jen and stepped back, keeping her clothes unbuttoned as she danced towards the men, teasing them. When the song ended, Cinnamon took off her clothes and threw them to Jen. Cinnamon took the money and clothes off the stage and walked to the curtain. Looking backward at Jen, she exited the stage into the back. "As for the dance, that's all you have to do," said Baby, stroking Jen's hand. "Are there other things?" Jen asked, terrified that she would be forced to dance in front of the men at the club. Most of them, if seen on the street, would turn away. After each set, you mingle with the crowd wearing little clothes. If someone wants to lap dance, tell them how much it costs, and when you get the money, you do your thing. They can't touch you, but you can touch them. The rules make it fun. Jen's expression made Baby laugh. "One more rule, no close communication with the client in the club. The town will shut down the establishment and you will end up in jail, not what you want on your resume." Jen was relieved. At least, all she had to do was dance. "I need another drink," Jen said. Baby ordered another round. Cinnamon walked out the door and came up behind Jen, wrapping her arms around Jen and squeezing her. "Hey!" Jen exclaimed as she jumped at the sudden contact, only slightly relaxing after she realized it was Cinnamon. Cinnamon and Baby laughed at Jen's expression, and after a slight delay, Jen joined in. "I have some work to do," Cinnamon said, nodding toward the men who had watched her dance. "Maybe later we can get to know each other a little better." Cinnamon whispered into Jen's ear as she kissed her way from Jen's earlobe down her neck. Before Jen could react, Cinnamon pulled away and danced over to the group of men. "She likes you," Baby commented as Cinnamon gave a heavy set man wearing a cowboy hat a lap dance. "Come on, it's almost your turn," Baby said, pulling Jen behind her into the back. Doris made a few last minute adjustments to Jen's costume before pushing her toward the stage entrance. Jen froze at the top of the stairs. She could see the men sitting around the stage, looking like starving animals about to be fed. Jen's mind was in turmoil as everything seemed to crash down on her all at once. New feelings for other women went against everything her parents had taught her. Associating with men other than her husband went against everything she believed about her identity as a wife and mother. A sense of helplessness came over Jen as she realized that her place in the world was becoming increasingly fluid when she was talking to Camilla or Donald. Dancing in front of a group of men on stage who wanted to spend time with her was the last straw. Images of Becky, Stan, her mother, and father all turning away in disgust at what she was becoming flashed through her mind. The worst images were of Becky yelling at her for being a hypocrite. "I can't do this anymore," Jen thought as she started to hyperventilate, the tears running down her face going unnoticed. "Hey, it's okay." Baby's voice broke through the thoughts, bringing her back to the present. Baby held her while stroking her hair, trying to calm her down. "Look at me," Baby demanded, turning Jen's face toward her. "Enough tears. It's not that bad, just a little dance to show what God gave you," Baby said, misunderstanding everything that upset Jen. Baby's face got thoughtful. "Well, now that I think about it, maybe it is bad," she said with a smile. Jen sank into Baby's embrace, enjoying the feeling of someone holding her and stroking her hair. Not wanting this to end but realizing it couldn't go on forever, Jen pulled away from Baby. "Thanks," Jen told her, placing her forehead against Baby's for a second. Baby released Jen, giving her a concerned look. Jen looked in the mirror and was glad the makeup Doris had applied hadn't run. "Let's get this over with," Jen said, putting on a brave face for Baby. Baby frowned at Jen's back as the housewife walked onto the stage and started dancing. Looking over at Doris, "Something isn't right here." "Yeah, I got that feeling when I met her," Doris said, coming up to stand with Baby as the two women watched Jen move around the stage, mimicking the set Cinnamon had performed earlier. The set seemed to fly by as Jen shed her clothes, glad that the stage lights made it difficult to see the men staring at her. Before she knew it, she was already on her way to the stage. Baby noticed that Jen was shaking and misinterpreted the reason. "You did fantastic," Baby exclaimed, hugging Jen, remembering how her nerves had been after the first few times she had stripped. "You're a natural," Doris said, smiling at Jen before walking away. Jen hardly heard any of them. She clearly remembered the bright lights, the almost invisible men making comments and suggestions, and wondered how things had gotten so out of hand. She was a wife, mother, and daughter raised in a very conservative home. "I think I am going to be sick," Jen said, holding her stomach. "Don't do it here," Doris said, looking up from the clothes she was putting away. "Come on," Baby said, guiding Jen toward the restroom. Jen managed to make it to the toilet before she threw up. Baby held her hair and rubbed her back, not saying anything, just trying to calm Jen down. Jen finished, and Baby guided her to the sink to clean up. Jen had just started wiping her face when the restroom door flew open. "What are you doing?" Camilla asked. "She got sick. Don't you remember the first time you did it?" "Oh, wait. This was back when the dinosaurs ruled the planet," said Baby, pushing Camilla away from Jen. Jen didn't know what she had done for Baby to be so protective, but she was glad Baby was dealing with Camilla. Camilla glared at Baby but changed her tone with Jen. Looking over Baby's shoulder, "You have to do a lap dance tour through the audience after a set. It's one of the rules Jessie gets bent out of shape about if you don't do it. They can wait a couple of minutes. It's not like they are going anywhere," Baby said, looking over at Jen. "I'm okay," Jen said, throwing the paper towel she used to wash her face into the trash. "See, everything is fine with her. Now get away from her so she can make some easy money," Camilla said, her look causing Baby to interject again. Jen put her hand on Baby's arm to forestall further drama, whispering thanks as she walked by. Baby frowned as she watched Jen walk away, unhappy about Camilla's hold over Jen. "Now all you have to do is ask if they want a lap dance. It's $1.50 for each dance and should last about 5 minutes. You saw what the other girls were doing, mostly mistress. Don't call me that out here," Camilla snapped, looking around. Sorry, Jen said, unsure why Camilla was so worried. Just dance to the music. If they touch you, remind them that it is not allowed. If they don't quit, walk away. You shouldn't have any problems this early, and Mike's keeping an eye on all the girls. They had reached the entrance to the main floor. Camilla turned to Jen. Any questions? Jen looked at Camilla for a second. Where do I put the money? A server will be floating around the table. Give them the money, and they will put it in an envelope behind the bar for you. You pick up the money from Jess at the end of the night. Anything else? Jen just shook her head. She still felt ill. Her nerves were working overtime as she thought about what she was about to do. Okay then. Go make me some money, Camilla said as she pushed Jen through the door. Jen stumbled on the threshold but caught herself on the door frame. Without looking back, she headed toward the men sitting around the stage. Glancing toward the bar, Jen saw Mike. He smiled and nodded, letting her know he was watching out for her. She felt a little better until she got close to the first guy. Hey baby, how about a little dance for me? The shaggy-looking man asked. It's $50 for a lap dance, Jen managed to say without throwing up. God, will this day never end, Jen thought, looking the guy up and down. His clothes looked like he had slept in them and smelled like it had been a few days since his last shower. She hoped he didn't have the money to pay for a dance. Come on, can't you cut a guy down on his luck a little break? Maybe throw Larry a pity dance. Jen smiled and shook her head while moving away from him toward the next group of men. Girl, she's too good for me, Jen heard before she felt a hand grab her arm and push her back. She watched in shock as he swung his arm to slap her across the face. He was holding her tightly, making it impossible to pull away. Jen closed her eyes, knowing that there was nothing she could do. Part of her thought she deserved to get hurt. It scared her that those thoughts were getting louder. Jen was suddenly let go. She stumbled slightly before catching herself on the back of a booth. Looking at Larry, she saw that Mike had pulled him into a headlock and watched in disbelief as Larry's face was smashed into a table. Gone was the nice guy that had greeted her and Camilla when they arrived. In his place was a very angry guy who scared her with the look on his face. Mike was the only thing holding Larry upright at this point, looking at Jen. Are you okay? The angry monster was gone, and in its place was the warm, friendly face she remembered. Jen cleared her throat. Yes. Thanks, she said, offering a tentative smile. Mike winked at her before his angry face came back. Holding Larry up by his collar, he looked at the other men, who had gone silent. Anyone else not understand the rules about touching them? They each shook their heads. Mike half-carried, half-drugged Larry toward the doorway. Baby came up to Jen, turning her face to look at her. Looks like you could use this, Baby said, handing Jen a shot. Jen threw her head back and gulped it all at once. Baby waited until Jen handed her the glass back before asking, You okay? Yeah, just caught me off guard, Jen said, glancing at Mike's receding back. Don't be afraid of Mike. He's just a big teddy bear. Baby thought for a second. Maybe he's like a big brother who is very protective of his little sisters. A very capable big brother. The rumor is he was a SEAL or something. He doesn't talk about it, which is kind of nice. I hate people who brag about how important they are. The latter statement was directed at the table where men sat ogling them. You shouldn't have any more issues now, Baby said with a smirk. Jen gave her a tentative smile before turning away and heading toward the next group of men. Anyone want a lap dance? Jen asked the group of young businessmen. Yeah, Todd wants one. One of the guys said, pushing another guy who must be Todd. Today is Todd's birthday. A dark-haired man said, nodding in Todd's direction. Well, happy birthday, Jen said, moving toward where Todd sat. We took a collection up while you were stripping. The man sitting next to Todd said, handing Jen a wad of cash. Glancing at the money, Jen realized it was several $100s. She frowned at the man who gave her the money. We know it's more than the price, but we wanted it to be special. Todd said you looked like his high school math teacher. Can you make it special for him? Jen was flattered that the younger man wanted her, even if it was because of a crush on someone who looked like her. Walking up to Todd, Jen gently raised his head to look at her. Hi, Todd, I haven't seen you since graduation. Since I'm not your teacher anymore, I wanted to tell you how much I enjoyed having you in class," Jen said, squatting down to look him straight in the eyes. Reaching out, she ran her hands up and down his chest, twisting his tie. She leaned close and whispered in his ear, "You were always my favorite student," Jen said, the alcohol removing some of her inhibitions. That last shot may have been a mistake, Jen thought, almost giggling as she wrapped her arms around his neck. Jen hovered over his lap, holding his head in her arms, almost touching him as she stroked the back of his head. She pulled away and turned around, accidentally touching him and feeling how excited he was. "Oh," Todd said, almost on the verge when Jen accidentally touched him. The other boys laughed at Todd, but none of them could take their eyes off Jen as she danced to the music. Jen was surprised at how excited she was. A few more moments of dancing, and she will be satisfied. Jen shook her head, causing her hair to fly out, wiggling her finger at Todd. "You are such a bad boy, Todd, touching your teacher without permission. May I touch you, Miss Kitty?" Todd asked, keeping his arms around her. Jen pulled away and looked at him. Biting her lip, she restrained herself from saying yes. "If you let me, I'll make you purr," Todd said, his hands hovering over her close enough to feel the heat radiating from her skin. Before she could answer, Baby was back. "Sorry, boys, I hate to break up the high school reunion, but Kitty has places to be." "5 more minutes," Todd begged. "Sorry, come on, Kitty," Baby said, pulling Jen off Todd's lap toward the employee entrance. Jen felt flushed as she glanced back at Todd, who was watching her walk away. She smiled at him, but it fell off her face when she saw Camilla standing off to the side. Camilla blew Jen a kiss before sitting down next to Todd. Jen had a bad feeling as the doors shut behind them. "God, girl, you need to learn to separate your desires from this job or you'll end up in jail." Baby pulled Jen into the break room, shutting the door behind her. "I had everything under control," Jen said, realizing she sounded like a little kid. "Really, I was not." "Yes, you were," Baby said, pushing Jen against the wall. "Hey, what?" Jen was about to protest, but Baby kissed her. Jen struggled for a few seconds before melting into the kiss. For a few seconds, the only sounds were the two women kissing and the moans they were making. Baby broke the kiss and whispered in her ear, "You never know which of them is an undercover cop. If you break the rules, you go to jail. Try to get a job with that on your record." Jen sat down hard, her head in her hands. "No, no, no," Jen said, shaking as she regained control for the first time in a while. "Hey, are you okay?" Baby asked, kneeling next to Jen. Something was happening here in which Camilla was involved. She was sure of it. "You know you can tell me what Camilla has on you." Baby took a chance. Jen looked up from her hands in shock, which was all the confirmation that Baby needed. "So she is blackmailing you." "I knew it," Baby said. "I don't want to talk about it," Jen said. Baby seemed sincere, but so had Camilla at the beginning. Baby walked over and picked up her cell. "I get it. What's your phone number?" Jen hesitated a second, but in the end gave her the number. "I sent you a text. If you need to talk about Camilla or anything else." "Thanks," Jen said. The two women sat, each lost in their thoughts until Camilla entered the room. "Go get dressed, Kitty," Camilla ordered Jen, ignoring Baby completely. Jen smiled at Baby as she walked past her. Camilla and Baby glared at each other until Jen returned. "Let's go," Camilla said, grabbing Jen's elbow to guide her out of the room.
Subscribe to our channel so that your second C, Gaff, doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think about listening to the next one.